Welcome to my channel. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel and another segment of Endless Journeys. Later on we're going to be talking about Eva Hart, Titanic ship survivor, and we're going to hear what she went through and what she has to say. She passed away a number of years ago, the same year that my own father passed away, about 3 decades ago. But before she did, she left an incredible footprint on this earth regarding her tragic experience and very life-changing experience. It shattered her world. And so she was 7 years old at the time and traveling with her parents. So we're going to get into that a little later. But right now, I am on my way to pick up a couple of ingredients for an upcoming recipe. I'm not doing it in this recipe. It's going to be another sauce, a traditional Italian sauce, tomato-based. And so I'm going to pick up a couple more ingredients. It's very similar to the marinara sauce that I made last week. And so, but I'm not going to be messing around with any vegetables this time. I want to keep it nice and simple. And I may also pick up a few eggs and do the fresh pasta thing again. And I'm not putting 5 eggs in it this time, that's for sure. Anyway, yeah, I'll be needing maybe some olives and some capers and maybe a different type of cheese. So we'll have to see what I can come up with. Anyway, let's go. Hi guys, here I am again, and I'm ready to talk to you about our next Endless Journey story, which is about a little girl and her parents who were all aboard the sinking Titanic in 1912. And so let's get into this. And it's such an interesting story. And so the little girl's name was Eva Hart, and she was actually born on the 31st of January, 1905, in Ilford, Essex, Greater London, England, to a mother and father. Well, the mom was a Christian lady who had been married before and she had 9 other children. And her father was a Jewish man. And so Eva was an only child. So she was her mom's 10th child, and she was the only child. And so of these two parents together. Her biological parents cared very deeply for her, and she was very close to her mother. And so anyway, let's get into this. Hold on. And so she she had 9 children from another marriage, and so she must have been a very tough lady. But as we get into the story, she was actually quite fragile. And so, all right, Eva was educated at St. Mary's Convent in Gidea Park, London. And so she had a proper upbringing, guys. She had a loving mother and father. And actually, in 1912, Benjamin, her father, decided her mother was Esther and her father was Benjamin. And so he decided that, like his brother, he would take his wife and his one child and wife and emigrate to Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And he was influenced by his own brother, who did already live there. And so the economic recessions at that time in England were, they also influenced his decision to emigrate. However, guys, I'm going to stop right here for a second and ask you, if you had 9 children from a previous marriage, I don't know what their ages were, would you emigrate and take one child with you and leave the rest there? I am sure that they had battles upon battles over this. And I don't understand. Was Benjamin running away from something? I'm not sure. Anyway, let's get back into the story. So that was that. They decided, they got on board, okay? So Eva was 7 when she and her parents boarded. And so when they boarded the Titanic, and they were actually listed as first class passengers in the folio that I'm going to show you later, but they were actually second class passengers on the April 10, 1912 journey passage. And so they had been booked previously on the SS Philadelphia. So they weren't supposed to. So that's why there was a difference in class. They bought second class seats, but then they were booted to first class. Not bad. But then, considering the fate of the Titanic, I would say they should have stayed home, right? And anyway, there was a coal strike at Southampton where the ship left. But it kept everybody from sailing, and other passengers were also transferred to the Titanic, like the Harts. And so Eva's mother, Esther, was allegedly quite uneasy, and she didn't want to board the Titanic. Guys, this isn't just a premonition. I believe that there was something in the way that the cards were being dealt for this family at the time, that she actually feared a catastrophe. And so the irony of calling a ship unsinkable was actually flying in the face of God, as this author puts it. And I see the point here. And so there was something about this trip. I imagine there must have been a commotion about this new white liner ship that nobody had ever boarded before. It was a maiden journey, and so a maiden voyage. She didn't want to go on it. Okay, so with such fear, Eva's mother, Esther, slept only during the day and stayed awake in their cabin at night, fully clothed. Well, something gave her that premonition. So Eva was sleeping when the Titanic struck an iceberg at 11:40 p.m. on April the 14th. And so they had been sailing for 4 days. And her mother was awake. Esther was already awake and did feel a quote unquote slight bump. Wow. An iceberg, and it was only a slight bump. That just absolutely floors me. And so Esther then asked Benjamin to go and find out what happened. Okay, so it was big enough that, it was loud enough and enough of an impact that gave Esther a scare. And this was the moment that she had been dreading. And so he reluctantly got out of bed and went to the dock. And so after he left the cabin, he came back and did alert her and Eva, little Eva, to a collision. And he wrapped Eva in a blanket and carried her to the deck. And so Eva's father, Benjamin, placed his wife and daughter in lifeboat number 14 rather. And so he told her that his last words to little Eva, his daughter, were, "Be a good girl and hold mommy's hand." And that was it, guys. He never saw them again. I imagine that all the men and women were separated in the lifeboats. I don't understand that. But I guess it was a policy so that all the women and children go first, and then whoever's left over dies. I don't know. It was not a good policy. Anyway, I'm not going to dwell on that. So guys, those were the last words that he ever said to little Eva. And it was indeed the last time that she ever saw her father, Benjamin. Benjamin perished in the sinking ship, and his body, if it was ever recovered, was never properly identified. And so he perished, guys. Eva and her mother Esther were rescued the following morning by the rescue ship RMS Carpathia. And we've spoken about this ship before. Soon after arriving in New York on April the 18th, days later, Eva and Esther returned to the UK because her mother never wanted to set sail for New York in the first place. And so Eva was plagued with nightmares upon the death of her mother in 1928. So her mother, Esther, lived for quite a few more years, but when she passed away, all that turmoil came back to Eva. And so at 23, she did confront her fears by booking a ticket on a passenger ship which was headed to Singapore. And guess what, guys? She did the same thing that Esther did. She locked herself in the cabin for 4 days straight until the nightmares went away. And so that's something, isn't it? In 2012, an audio guide to the Titanic memorials was produced in Southampton, and it featured audio clips of Eva Hart talking about her experience aboard the Titanic. That must have been something. And so this guide actually takes listeners on a walking route around Southampton and where the Titanic actually set sail on its maiden voyage. Being 7 at the time of the sinking, Eva maintains several very vivid memories of that journey. And so, guys, I am going to look for that audio. If there's a link, I'm sure it's available on Audible. I am going to see if I can find a website or something to guide you to it, because it does sound like it could be very fascinating. And so, anyway, she starts telling and describing what went on. On the first day, she says, "We went on the boat train. I never saw a ship before. It looked so big, and everybody was excited. We went down to the cabin, and that's when my mother said to my father that she had made up her mind firmly and that she would not go to bed in that ship. That fear stuck with Eva all of her life. And Mom Esther sat up at night and decided that she would not, and indeed did not, go to bed. One fact about the Titanic is that it was allegedly unsinkable, but the Titanic had indeed sunk, and there were between 700 and 1,500 survivors." She said, "I saw the ship sink." Eva said in a 1993 interview, "I never closed my eyes. I didn't sleep. I saw it, I heard it, and I could never possibly forget it. And I remember colors, sounds, and everything. The worst thing were the screams. It seemed that everybody had gone, and everything was, the whole world, she said everybody was gone, drowned, finished. The whole world stood still. Late at night, in the middle of the night, in the cold dark, there was nothing, just deathly, terrible silence in the dark night with stars overhead." She doesn't recall the lights. Anyway, she did say that she saw colors. Eva recalled hearing the band playing "Nearer, My God, to Thee" as it went into the ocean. That must have been horrible. Eva frequently criticized the White Star Line for failing to provide enough lifeboats for all the passengers aboard the Titanic. And so, for instance, if a ship is torpedoed, that's war. If it strikes a rock in a storm, that's nature. But to just die because there aren't enough lifeboats, well, that's plain nonsense. It's ridiculous. The official report of the British inquiry suggests, however, that additional boats, lifeboats, would not necessarily have made a difference. I don't know. Maybe it's because that they were having a hard time getting them activated. I don't know. And there was no boat drill, no advance information, no drill on what the crew should do in the event of an emergency. So Eva insisted that the ship had broken in half, and I imagine she saw it, and that was a very widely debated rumor, however, that finally was proven to be true after the discovery of the wreck site by Robert Ballard in 1985. Now, Robert Ballard is the same explorer scientist who went on a mission to find the missing plane of Amelia Earhart. Eve was adamant regarding controversy surrounding the SS Californian. a ship that was only a few miles from the Titanic, which failed or refused to respond to the Titanic's distress calls. Well, the distress calls were rockets that were shot into the air and calls for help. So Eva or Eve claimed that the vessel was less than 10 miles from the Titanic and not 19 miles, as was previously alleged. So what I'm asking is, did Eva confuse that ship with the other ship that actually did try to rescue the Titanic? I'm not sure. It's hard to say. She did say that she saw the Californian, I guess the writing on the boat. So here's what she says about the Californian. It was terribly close. I didn't see a ship 19 miles away. I saw a ship that was so close, and they said it was less than 9 miles away. And yet now they're trying to say it was 19. I saw it, and it wasn't just lights on the horizon. You could see right up front it was a ship. And I saw our rockets being fired, which that ship must have seen. And so, well, this inquiry says that they did see it, but they didn't think it was anything. It's almost laughable, guys. I can't imagine that something like that happened and that there were not enough lifeboats and the ship did not respond. I can't imagine it. And so they didn't think it was any sign of danger. I don't get it. So I would have thought, now this is Eva speaking, I would have thought in the Atlantic in the middle of the night that rockets must mean trouble and not celebration. That's my input. So there were two different ships that were very close by from what I can gather from all the other sources. So which one did Eve or Eva actually see? I'm confused, but I'm sure that she has it right. And so, guys, after the sinking of the ship, Eva Hart had several jobs during her life. First, she was a professional singer in Australia, a Conservative Party organizer, and magistrate. As a volunteer in the Second World War, she organized entertainment for troops and distributed emergency supplies to people after the Blitz. She was a member of Soroptimist International of East London from 1962 until her death in 1996, serving as club president during the 70 to 71 period, and as a member for 34 years. Very commendable. In 1974 New Year honors, she was appointed a member of the Order of the British Empire for political and public services in London, and that award was presented by Duke of Kent during a 3-day week. When salvaging efforts at the wreck site in 1987, Hart noted that the Titanic was a grave site and should be treated as such. And remember, I said the same thing when I was talking about the Titan sub's journey to the Titanic site. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't understand that craze and that passion with death. She said it should be treated as a gravesite and often decried insensitivity and greed and labeled salvagers, fortune hunters, vultures, pirates, and grave robbers. Yes, her father lost his life. I'm sure she would have thought that way. And I do agree with her. And so it's like joyfully scavenging for people's bones in the horrific spectacle grounds of the Colosseum in Rome. Guys, that's a death arena. And I'll never forget how depressed I was walking along those cells and thinking of how many men must have faced their last moments of life waiting to be devoured by those animals. Yeah, it's not nice, no matter how you look at it. Fate, that kind of fate is never pleasant. In Titanic, the complete story, Eve states, I hope severely that they never attempt to raise the Titanic. I hope they remember this as a grave of 1,500 people who should never have died. And I don't think that you should go down there and rob graves. I'm thinking she may have been implying this about Robert Ballard. I don't know, guys. So she also said, I'm very much opposed to it. But in my opinion, in my experience, the movie, which was done after her death, her passing, I heard that that movie set did replicate the literal parts that were there, like the staircase. And I don't understand how they did it. So they did go down there, guys. In later life, Eva Hart remained active in Titanic-related activities well into her 80s. And so in 1982, she returned to USA and joined other survivors at a Titanic Historical Society convention commemorating the 70th anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic. And she participated in 3 conventions in 1987, 1988, and 1992. In 1994, she wrote an autobiography, A Shadow of the Titanic, A Survivor's Story, in which she described her experiences aboard ship and implications of its sinking. And so one part that I don't know why I left it out. I think I skipped a page, but my notes are such a mess. What happened was that after her father passed away, and her mom, before her mother passed away, she was 23 when her mother passed away. But between the time that she was 7 and 23, she became very, very close with her mother, and they took more voyages all over the world. They went through Italy, they went to Asia, they went through Europe, not just Italy. They never ever stopped traveling. And so that was one thing about Eva and Esther. They remained very comforting to each other, but they always confronted their fears. They refused to back off. Can you imagine how devastatingly fearful, even with Esther's own initial fears with the Titanic, she still faced them head on and went back and sailed over and over and over again. I imagine that she knew she had to get over that fear, and I don't know what it must have been like for her or for her daughter, Eva. So anyway, in February, on February the 14th, 1996, Eva Hart died from cancer at 91 years old. And so she passed away in a London hospice 2 weeks after her 91st birthday. And so her death left 8 remaining survivors. In her memory, in honor of her memory, the Wetherspoon pub in Chadwell Heath, where she lived on Japan Road, is still there and named the Eva Hart. And so I'm so glad that she did survive to tell all those stories and give us her own opinion. I mean, it doesn't take a mature adult to realize that that ship made a mistake. It made an error. And that kind of attitude continued on with the Titanic sub. And it's not difficult to imagine what she would have thought or said to Ocean Gate's CEO, who of course perished in the sub implosion. And I agree. I even before I ever heard of Eva Hart, I voiced to you already all those same opinions. And this astonishment with death, it should stop, guys. It should stop. It's not that we're evil to think about things like this, but we should not be fascinated by death. We should live beside it and not glorify it. You know what I'm saying? And to do things like the Ocean Gate Titanic sub tried to do, it's not normal or natural. It's not healthy. And so, anyway, I hope that you're enjoying this story. So I know that it was her wish to tweet, not to treat the gravesite as a public spectacle. Because when you do that, you kind of lighten the gravity of death. And such a grievous and grave accident that it should never have happened. It was totally preventable. And so we do know that the Titanic sank, and it took hundreds of people with it. We don't have to go looking for bones. We do know exactly where it is, thanks to Robert Ballard, the same scientist explorer who did set out to find Amelia Earhart's plane, but never did. And so, guys, I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. It's sad. It's sad that she lost her father in it. It's sad that the men and women were not allowed to get rescued together. All of it is sad. It's horrific. And so anyway, guys, we've reached the end of this session of Endless Journeys. And so thank you very much for listening and watching. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye for now.